Hey mamas. Today we're going to talk about boundaries, specifically how to say no to your provider when they're trying to get you to do something that you've decided you don't want to do. It could be anything from the glucose test to an induction or elective cesarean. And if you've decided that this is something you don't want to do, then you have the right to make an informed decision. And there are a lot of things that providers will present as, this is what we're going to do. And they won't even tell you that it's an option or that you have a choice in the matter. Especially if you're a first-time mom, it can be hard to say no and to know what your rights are and what choice to make. So this video is to help if you've made an informed decision not to do something and your provider is trying to get you to do it and you're having trouble saying no. Some of the strategies that providers will use to try to push you into things are, they'll just assume. Like I said, they'll present options as absolutes. Like, this is the plan and this is what's going to happen, not this is what you can do or this is what I recommend. Another one is guilt. They could try to tell you that you're putting your baby at risk or tell you scary stories about what could happen if you don't do what they want you to do. Another one is shame. Well, you're a good mom and you want to do what's best for your baby, right? So you'll do this. They're trying to shame you and tell you that you're a bad mom if you don't want to do it. And they often put it into a compliment sandwich like that. They'll say something good about you, say, you're a really smart person, something patronizing like that, and then tell you that you're only smart if you do what they want you to do. Or then they'll say, well, you want to be a good mom, so you're going to do this. Another tactic is threats. They'll say that they can't be your doctor anymore. They're going to kick you out of the practice, or they're going to call CPS. I actually had a doctor tell me and my husband, when we started interviewing doctors, we brought up the topic of vaccines. We said we've chosen not to vaccinate with our first daughter. And she said that if we were at her practice and we refused to give her the shots when and how she said that we had to do them, then she'd report us to CPS and try to get our baby taken away. So obviously we didn't go to that doctor. We left her office very quickly after that. Now, let's talk about some ways to learn to be comfortable with saying no. Because let's be honest, most of us have a hard time saying no to people. It's uncomfortable, it can be scary, and it can be hard. So you need to practice by keeping your boundaries in other parts of your life. Friends and family, if they want you to do something with them and you don't really feel like going, they want you to come out to a party, but you're having morning sickness that's lasting all day, or your hips hurt, or you're really tired and you just want to stay home and take a nap, then that's okay. You can do that. You need to take care of you, and you need to take care of your baby. You need to put your baby first, which right now while you're pregnant is putting yourself first. So practice this in other parts of your life. You also want to associate pain with saying yes. It's a way to rewire the brain. So you think about what could happen, the reason that you don't want to do this thing. So let's say it's an elective cesarean and you don't want all the risks that come with having a C-section. So you think about that and what it would be like if you did it. Think about the worst case scenario for what could possibly happen if you say yes. And you focus on that and kind of train your brain and then think about the positives with saying no. So if you say no, one thing that's going to happen is you're going to feel empowered. You're going to leave that office thinking, I just stood up to them. I stood up to somebody who thinks they should be an authority figure over me. I really didn't think that I could. And it's like a challenge and you're overcoming it. Think about how happy you're going to be when you achieve your goal, when you achieve your vision of the birth that you want, the pregnancy you want, things like that. Another one is building your confidence in your decision by researching, educating yourself, looking up actual statistics. There's a lot of things that doctors will say, like, well, 1 in 3 babies is going to end up with this issue if you don't do this. And it's often not true. Some of their information may have been considered true at one point in time, but it's outdated research, especially if they're older. If they're younger, they tend to have more updated information and they're less likely to give out really outdated statistics like that. But if they're older and really set in their ways, or if they were trained by someone who was older and didn't keep up with continuing research, then they're going to toss out numbers like that. And they're going to scare you. So you really need to build your confidence by knowing the facts. The best weapon against fear is truth. Knowledge. Knowledge is power. Another method is to remind yourself whenever you catch yourself saying yes to something you really don't want to say yes to throughout your daily life. Let's say if your partner asks if something they've cooked for you is good, and you're thinking, oh no, this is too salty, this is going to be hard to eat. But you want to kind of spare their feelings? Well, that's a good opportunity to practice your boundaries. You might just say, yeah, it's great, hon. And then later you think, I really should have told them. So that way, they'll know next time not to put in so much salt, or just put in salt after so you can salt it to your taste, something like that. And just remind yourself, oh, I should have said no there. That's a good way to practice. And you want to be sure not to judge yourself. So if you find yourself saying yes by agreeing to things you didn't want to agree to, don't be too hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up over it. Everything is just a learning experience. So you didn't get it right this time, but you learned something, and that'll help you remember to get it right next time and do it the way that you want to. You also want to become aware of the resistances inside yourself, the reasons that you might have to not want to say no. You could be afraid of what your provider will think of you if you say no to them. You could be afraid of what your friends and family will think. You could feel like, well, if I just do everything the doctor says, then it's not my fault. If anything goes wrong, then I have no responsibility for it because I did what the doctor said. So then it's their fault and I can be angry at them. I won't be angry at myself because I didn't make my own decisions. I let them make the decisions for me. But you've got to also, tell yourself, wait, no, I need to take responsibility for my own actions and my own decisions. I need to inform myself, and I need to not let others make the decisions for me. You need to overcome that limiting belief. That way, you won't end up blaming yourself later if you do what they said. And then the other side of that is you could think, why didn't I fight for what I know was right? Why did I listen to them? I knew I shouldn't have. You might end up feeling guilty. Another strategy is to celebrate when you say no, even if it's just something small. A friend asks if you want to go out for a bite to eat and you're just too tired that day or too painful. And you say, not today. I really just don't feel up to it, but thanks for thinking of me. That's a good way to really reinforce in your mind and teach your brain how to say no. Now, let's go over some strategies for actually saying no, because most people aren't going to want to hear when you say no, especially providers. The first tactic is you want to be preemptive. Say no before they ask. Go into this appointment and know they're going to be asking this, or they've already told you or hinted that they're planning to try to push you into something that you already know you don't want to do this time. So you go in and you be concrete. You just inform them of your plans, your vision, and how you want things to go. Just be firm. Another one is to be consistent. Always keep them informed of your opinions, your choices, what you want. Don't ever just say, I kind of wanted this, but, I'm really not sure. Don't waffle. Make your decisions, make them known, stick to them. And you need to use strong language. So not, I don't want to, but I'm not going to. Or, I don't think so. Or just, no. Use that stronger language that's more firm and really commands respect. And it's okay to be vague. You don't have to defend your choices, and you don't have to explain them. You can just tell them, no, that's not what I want to do. And a lot of times, if you try to go into detail and explain things, it gets too complicated. And that just makes it easier and opens up new avenues for them to attempt to manipulate or coerce you into doing what it is that you're resisting. There's a 5-step strategy for saying no that you can try as well. You want to start with a compliment like, I really respect your opinions, and I know you're a great doctor, Or you're a great nurse, you're such a strong person, or smart person, stuff like that. Then reinforce your decision. But that's not what I'm going to be doing. What I'm going to be doing is this. This is my choice. And then you thank them. Thank you. Thank you for being concerned about me. Thank you for being concerned about my baby. Thank you for letting me know my options. Just thank them. They're more likely to accept a no when you make them feel good about it. The next step is you want to encourage them. Let them know that you still respect them. Just throw out another compliment. Use one of those compliment sandwiches. Thank you for thinking about me. Thank you for wanting to protect me. Thank you for wanting to protect my baby. You're such a nice person. You're so helpful. Everything you've told me has been really informative. I really appreciate that. That's great. And then you want to change the subject or excuse yourself. Now, if you're in the office and you're in a gown, your legs are in stirrups, can't really excuse yourself in that kind of a situation. But you can change the subject. So if you go into your appointment with a question, something that you think your provider might talk on, and then you ask them, but you know what? I did have a question about ... And so that immediately gets them thinking about how to answer your question and makes them forget about what it was they were trying to ask you to do. So those are some strategies on how to say no, how to prepare yourself so you know what kind of tactics they're going to use to try to get you to say yes, and ways to build your confidence and practice saying no and holding your boundaries. And you can apply this across your entire life. It doesn't just have to be with your provider. You can use this with friends, with family, acquaintances, in-laws, co-workers, any aspect of your life. And if you hold your boundaries, you're going to be happier. You're going to feel better. And you're going to be more likely to stick to your decisions and have less regret and guilt for changing your mind or allowing things to happen that you didn't want to happen. And it's really going to help you in the long run. So I hope you've learned a lot about boundaries and how to hold them and how to respect yourself and keep yourself accountable for your own decisions. Remember, it's your body, your baby, your birth. Thanks for watching. See you next time.